A new development this afternoon in the deadly Gilroy Garlic Festival shooting. Police have identified the suspect, and we now know a 6-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl are among the victims. Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Griego.
And I'm Melissa Kane in for Kenny Choi. Now, within the last couple of hours, the Gilroy police chief has confirmed 19-year-old Santino William Ligon is the festival shooting suspect. This is video of him at his high school graduation at Gilroy High, taken by Brian Garcia Films. The suspect was shot and killed by police.
We have live team coverage on the victims, including those in the hospital right now. First, let's go to Kit Doe live in Gilroy with the latest in the investigation. Kit?
Yeah, so the big question right now, what about this second suspect? Police said that they got multiple reports of a second person involved in this, but today the chief said there were a lot of variations in the details to those reports. After looking all night and much of the morning today, they found nothing, and right now the chief says they really just don't know. The crime scene is much more complex and expansive than it appears. 30 FBI agents have now joined the large contingent of officers on the ground, combing the area for evidence.
As we find evidence, as we flag it, as we mark it and map it, we're determining that the crime scene is much more expansive than what we originally thought, and it amounts to many, many, many acres.
As law enforcement agents search a home connected to the suspect, we're learning more about who the police say is the shooter, 19-year-old Santino Ligon. Investigators say he bought the gun legally himself, an SKS-type weapon similar to an AK-47 in Nevada. Police Chief Scott Smithy says 3 officers were in the vicinity when Ligon began shooting.
As soon as he saw the officers, he engaged the officers and fired at the officers with that rifle. And I had 3 officers that engaged the suspect. And despite the fact that they were outgunned with their handguns against a rifle, those 3 officers were able to fatally wound that suspect. There absolutely would have been more bloodshed, I believe. With the number of people and the small area that they were in, I think it's very, very fortunate that they were able to engage him as quickly as they did.
Ligon is a Gilroy native, lived away from the area for some time, and it's unclear where he was living at the time of the shooting.
Our preeminent and principal concern at this point is motivation, ideological leanings. Was he affiliated with anyone or any group? That still has to be ruled out and still has to be determined at this point.
And a lot of festival goers still have their cars stuck out there at the scene. Police say it'll be that way for at least a couple of days. Just a huge crime scene, multiple roadblocks, the airspace is all in lockdown. They say it'll be that way for at least a couple of days. And finally here, we're hearing that there is some kind of vigil planned for tonight. It's happening at the Target, the only Target in town. It's at 10th Street and 101. That is set for 6 p.m. today. We're live in Gilroy. Kit Doe, KPIX 5.
Thanks, Kid.
KPIX 5's Jackie Ward is live outside the Santa Clara Valley Medical Center in San Jose with new details on the victims.
Michelle, of the 7 people who were brought here to be treated for their gunshot wounds, 5 are still here seeking medical attention for their injuries. 1 person was transferred to Stanford, another discharged. 12-year-old Leslie Andress is among the remaining gunshot victims recovering at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. Her sister describes her as a timid, shy, soon-to-be 7th grader at Moreland Middle School who likes to draw and read.
Everybody was in front of the shooter. Like, they were at some tables right in front of the shooter, and they all saw him. So thank God they didn't get close enough to them.
Joy Alexio, the spokesperson for Santa Clara County Health System, told us the 7 gunshot victims that were treated here range from age 12 to 69 years old. Of those 7, 5 remain at Santa Clara Valley Medical Center. 1 is listed in critical condition, 1 in serious, and 1 is in fair. The other 2 wish to keep their status private. As this event was unfolding, staff here stepped up in a big way.
People just started showing up. People called in to see if they were needed, and so there was a great response by our staff who were, part of this community too, so they were feeling, that part as well.
Valley Medical Center says between their hospital and St. Louis's Medical Center in Gilroy, 19 victims were treated, 11 of those for gunshot wounds. Other people got scrapes and bruises while trying to run to safety. 3 people have died from their injuries, including 6-year-old Steven Romero. His mother and grandmother were also injured. The grandmother is reportedly getting treatment at Valley Medical Center, while the mother was transferred to Stanford. The other 2 people who were killed were a 13-year-old girl and a man in his 20s. Live in San Jose, Jackie Ward, KPIX 5.
And new at noon, we are hearing from the uncle of 6-year-old Steven Romero as the family mourns his loss and stays hopeful for the mother's recovery.
He's a very outgoing boy, very well-mannered. He was very empathetic. He was a really good kid. And the bullet that hit Steven in the back actually traveled through his body and hit her in the abdomen as well.
Obviously a very devastating time for this family, and you can see it is still a very active scene on festival grounds. This video from earlier this morning showing the FBI and dozens of other law enforcement still investigating the now taped off festival. You can see empty tents also scattered throughout the grounds, and it's still not clear when people will be able to pick up their belongings that were left behind.
And we're hearing from people who were at the festival as shots were fired. One survivor described dodging bullets and helping others escape.
Like I said, I felt one of the bullets go over my head, and then we actually seen a couple of bullets fly by. And that's when we just helped everybody get out of the way, get out of the scene.
What were you thinking of that? Scared?
Scared. I thought for sure I was going to get shot. I kept looking at myself just because we were right there.
Yeah, and look, when the bullets go over, like what kind of noise is that?
It was like a bumblebee, like a buzzing sound.
Make the noise.
You like, and you just hear the shoo, and you just feel the wind. You could feel it go over.
Witnesses tell us the gunshots sounded like fireworks. They say the chaos really started when the sound kept going, and then people ran for their lives. Some even jumped over bodies to escape.
President Trump spoke out this morning on the deadly shooting.
We grieve for their families, and we ask that God will comfort them with his overflowing mercy and grace. We're praying for those who are recovering right now in the hospital. We thank the brave members of law enforcement. They never let us down, who swiftly killed the shooter. We reaffirm our national will to answer violence with the courage, determination, and resolve of one American family.
And Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris is also weighing in on yesterday's deadly mass shooting, calling it a tragedy all around.
It just keeps happening in our country, and these families are right now in deep pain. And so I just want to express my sorrow to them. I want to thank the first responders who turned out to secure the fair and the grounds and make sure no one else was harmed or exposed to harm, but it's just tragic. There's no other way to describe it.